Hey, Riponi
Hello everyone, this is Tails the Hero.
and JTH, and I know that our parts of our 200th video special may have been uploaded a few weeks ago. This is actually quite a few months later.
Yeah, I've been very busy lately, and I actually took today off from work. I didn't feel like going, plus I'm going to be quitting soon, because everyone there treats me like dirt, so I figured I'd come hang out with him.
Yep, and it kind of works out that he's been busy because I've been busy myself with college.
Yeah, but still, it's like, when I'm at work anymore, it's just, they treat me like crap. So really, like, I just don't want to be there anymore.
Yeah, do you think you might try to get a better job? Oh, and by the way, he's officially moved into his aunt's house.
Yeah, I'm a town away now, but, I'm going to try and get a job down there during the week, so I can still do stuff on the weekends, but,
Hopefully, if you do get a job where you just work during the weekend, during the weekends you're off. If I don't have any schoolwork to do, you and me can hang out a bit more
yeah,
often.
I got a lot of stuff planned for next year,
I
so
just don't know if your aunt would be too happy about having to go back and forth every Saturday or Sunday.
well, she already does that.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I come up here to get it because I gotta go to work every Saturday.
Oh, okay.
All
Okie
right. Well,
dokie.
anyway,
Well, anyways, this is part 6 of Silent Ponyville 2, or Chapter 6.
correct.
You may call it whichever you like.
Yep.
But it is what we will be reading today.
Oh, my back. And if I get up to go over to the couch, my hand has been sore lately, so I have pills for it.
And so have his legs.
I've been working hard.
Okay, here we go. Chapter 6. The hallway was dark and long. It was old. It was covered with mold as it rotted at its core. Water fell down the sides of the wall in small streams. The floor had a small pool of water lying all about. The hair on the back of Fluttershy's neck stood on end, but she walked forward into the darkness. Every step echoed off the walls, her hooves splashing against the water on the floor each time she passed a puddle. She didn't know where she was or where the path was going. She didn't know what happened to Pinkie Pie. She didn't know what happened to Rainbow Dash. She only knew she had to go forward right now. The hallway turned. Fluttershy followed it. It turned again. She turned as well. The water was growing deeper. Each hoof was splashing through water with every step she took. She stumbled for a moment, adjusting herself to walk through with only 3 hooves, but she managed to catch herself. Yeah, because don't forget she really hurt one of her legs badly.
Yeah, I remember.
The hallway turned once more. Fluttershy went along the long winding corridor, seeming to be leading her, guiding her to where it wanted to take her. She almost had no choice in the matter. Even if she could feel that there was no going back now, she had come this far. Once she had crossed that doorway, there was no turning back.
What was the score of the game last night? Do you remember?
42-21.
Okay, my friend was asking.
Yeah, me and him saw a football game last night.
Our high school has like a big game every year against our rivals. It's called the Bell Game, where literally you fight for a bell between the two schools, and we destroyed them 42-21.
Yeah, beat them by 3 frickin' touchdowns.
Pretty good game. But anyway,
Yeah.
let's get back to the fanfiction. I'm sorry, I just had to ask.
Yeah, I remember when it was halftime, it was tied.
Yeah.
Just before the path opened up and split, a path to the left, a path to the right, and in the middle stood a door right before her. The door was different, though. It wasn't made of the same rotting material as the other doors she'd seen, or of rustic metal or anything that would fit within the drenched world she found herself in. The door looked exactly like the door to her house back in Ponyville, in great condition despite the environment. She carefully walked up to the door, pushing it open as she walked into the room it led to. Well, this is the best place I can think of, Rainbow Dash said while flying with Fluttershy to the outskirts of Ponyville on a small empty cottage stood close to the edge of the Everfree Forest. An old for sale sign stood before the property. Another flashback.
Yeah. You okay?
Yeah. No one wants to live here since it's so close to the Everfree Forest, but with your love of animals, I thought that might work out for you. Wow, it looks great, Fluttershy smiled quietly, walking up to the house. Fluttershy opened the door and looked inside. The house was dusty from disuse, but everything appeared to be in good condition still. It even came with furniture wrapped in cloth, waiting for someone to unwrap them and for use once more. Fluttershy wandered the home as Rainbow Dash entered the house after her. She could see everything she could do with the home. She could make spots for the animals to live. She could set up the closet to hold her supplies. She could have several soft chairs for resting and tables for eating. The kitchen seemed to have everything she needed to cook the perfect meals, and water was still running in the bathroom. Oh, Rainbow Dash. It's perfect, Fluttershy smiled, happily returning to the living room. You like it, huh? All right then, I'll buy it for you.
Whoa.
Rainbow grinned. Fluttershy looked at her, speechless. Oh no, I could never ask you to do that. It's so much money. I can work to pay for it myself. Fluttershy fumbled her words.
That's a hell of a friend buying her a house.
Yeah, don't worry about it. This house is like dirt cheap right now, and I made plenty of money from my job here. Heck, there's even talk of promoting me. Rainbow waved her hoof at Fluttershy, trying to dismiss her worries. But still, I couldn't ask you to do that for me. Fluttershy frowned, not wanting to take so much of Rainbow's charity. It was a huge investment just for her. She didn't even feel worthy of it. Rainbow Dash really is the element of loyalty, if she's gonna buy Fluttershy a house.
Yeah, but element of loyalty is good. But for something like that, you would think the element of generosity, like rarity, because if you're buying a house,
that's really generous.
I mean, no offense, man, I love you, but I can't buy you a house. I don't have that much money.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of people would be like that. Hey, just think of it as my apology for running out on you at school. Rainbow weakly smiled. So in return, you make this house your perfect home. All right. I know you had one in mind you used to speak about all the time when I last saw you. Rainbow chuckled. Fluttershy stared at the mirror before her, still stupefied. She slowly looked around at the house once more. The perfect home, she thought to herself. Something I never had as a filly, but I have the ability to make it come true now. She smiled softly as she felt tears begin to gently form at the edges of her eyes.
Nerd.
I will. Fluttershy wiped her eyes gently, returning to face Rainbow Dash. I'll make this my perfect home.
Hopefully someday I can have that. You know what my ideal home would be?
Wait, let me guess. A whole house decked out with Steeler stuff.
No, not exactly. No, actually, my perfect home would be in upstate New York, in the country, on a small hill. Not a big house, just a normal sized house, kind of like yours. But
would you want a cottage house, like everything on one floor?
No. I'd want a nice house. I would like to have 4 or 5 bedrooms, but in the surrounding area would be all my cool stuff. Like there would be this thing that looked like an outhouse, but you would go into it and there'd be stairs going down, and it'd be my man cave. It'd be like all decked out and like
that'd be awesome.
It'd be like all my stuff, all my favorite stuff: Steelers, ponies,
Doctor Who,
Red Sox, everything.
Doctor Who, Red Sox, yeah. The room dimmed from a bright light that filled her vision. The memories had flooded her vision before she had a chance to prepare for them. Now that the memories had faded, she could see the room for what it was. The room was laid out similarly to her living room, though it looked like it had been when she moved in, covered in dust and with cloth covering the furniture. Fluttershy was silent. She wasn't sure what to make of the images she had just seen. It was her memory of moving into Ponyville after she had come to find Rainbow Dash. They had an amazing reunion when she told Dash she was going to move to Ponyville. Dash helped her so much in finding a place to live. That memory. I don't remember thinking that I didn't have a perfect home before. Fluttershy spoke softly, surprised by her own thoughts. She didn't doubt that she felt that way, but she couldn't remember why she would feel that way about her home. A glint of light caught her eye as she turned to look at the back wall of the room. Something was hanging from the wall. She quickly walked up to the item, seeing that it was a key with the mark of a butterfly on it. Not sure what to make of it, she carefully picked it up and placed it in her bag. She exited the room, stepping her hooves back into the few inches deep of water in the hallway. She now had a choice: go down the hallway to the left, or the one to her right.
That's always a fucked up decision, especially when you play video games. Like, you go the wrong way, you're dead.
Yeah. Taking a guess, she began to slowly walk down the left path, listening to the sloshing of her hooves as she walked. She didn't walk too far before she stopped, staring at what was standing perfectly still in the path, blocking her movement.
Oh boy.
A mannequin seemed to be frozen in place on the path. It was just sitting there. Her music box wasn't making a sound, and it didn't seem to have a desire to attack her. but it just seemed to be waiting for her, blocking her path forward. She carefully stepped backwards away from the creature, it soon disappearing from her sights once more. She turned herself around and began to walk down the right path, wanting to stay away from the path that led to monsters if she could avoid it. The right path wasn't that long, though, as it came to a rather abrupt end not too far away from the fork. However, at the end was another door, though this one was different. It wasn't like the door to her cottage. This time the door reminded her of the one she would have seen back at flight school. She took a deep breath and slowly pushed the door open, heading inside.
I'm gonna guess another flashback's coming.
Yep.
Jump.
Now you listen to me, her father said gruffly as the two of them stood outside the flight school in Cloudsdale. It's required for you to go to school, so you'll go every day they have it. You'll do everything your teachers tell you, and you'll come straight home unless you ask permission to do otherwise. And if you're good, I'll likely allow your request. He sounded very stern. But every other rule from home still applies. You don't talk unless spoken to. You don't tell anyone anything unnecessary. You obey everything the adults say unless I overrule them. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Philly Fluttershy squeaked her response, never looking her father in the eye, keeping her head low. If you understand, then I'll see you at home later tonight, he said, turning away from her, spreading his wings out and flying off. For the first time, Fluttershy lifted her head back to look at her father flying away. Even from there, she could see the scalpel that adorned his flank as he flew off. Her father a doctor or something?
They explained that earlier. Remember, her mother was in the hospital and her father came in?
Oh, yeah. She let out a soft sigh, thankful he had left. She looked up at the school before her. There were lots of young and old Pegasi flying around and into the building. Many were hugging and saying goodbye to their parents. Sorry, I woke up early this morning. Many were meeting up with their friends, and many looked reluctant to head into the school. If you're wondering what time I woke up, it was 7:30.
Why?
I don't know, I fell asleep I didn't go to sleep until like 2 in the morning.
I was in bed at 1.
What time did you wake up?
I was up at 9:30.
It was the first day of school. Fluttershy was happy that she finally had a reason to be somewhere else other than at home or in the hospital. But the faces of so many Pegasi she hadn't met before intimidated her. She was scared of them. She gulped down the lump in her throat and slowly began to walk into the school. It seemed almost every other Pegasi was flying inside. She felt like she stood out like a sore hoof walking into the building. That is pretty general. I wonder why. Fluttershy has wings, but she hardly ever uses them, unless she's happy.
Well, maybe it's just the fact that she's, you know how she's so scared. Maybe she's a little like nervous to fly.
Yeah, but there was a spark of hope in her heart that hadn't been there before. The light faded from the room as the memory came to an end. The room she was left in was knocked into an abandoned school. Looked like an abandoned school hallway, though cut short off by a suddenly erected wall. Rusted lockers lined the walls as a broken clock hung over them. The entire area was covered with dust from disuse. Why was my father always that stern? Fluttershy wondered to herself, having not realized her father had talked down to her like that. And I was afraid of him. But why was I afraid of my father?
I was afraid. I've been afraid of my father before.
She asked herself, unable to find the answers within her memories.
Well, I guess it all depends. When certain parents,
Well, still, what kind of parents would they be if you didn't fear them at least a little?
I've been afraid of my dad before.
She then realized what was going on. Deep within there are secrets laid to rest, Fluttershy murmured, remembering up the puzzle on the door. This place is showing me memories I forgot, or more accurately, memories I suppressed. Fluttershy felt a lump in her throat. I forgot about these memories. I must have forgotten about them for a reason. Fluttershy did her best to gulp the lump that had formed in her throat. She walked carefully to the back of the room, noticing that the key was sitting there. She carefully picked it up, examining it. The key had the shape of a cloud on it. She carefully placed the key in her bag before exiting the room. Her hooves returned to the water-filled hallway once more. She hesitated for a moment, but headed down the hallway where the mannequin had been standing. It was the next place she had to check. She couldn't go back now. She rounded the bend in the hallway, swallowing to keep her nerves as she drew closer to where the mannequin had been standing. But it was gone now, as if it had been standing guard, waiting for her to see the second memory. It had vanished from its position. Fluttershy counted her blessings at this. She couldn't handle any more injuries to her body. She imagined that the state her body was in, any more damage would cause more serious internal injuries once she couldn't fix herself. If she got an internal injury now, she'd just die a slow, painful death.
Ain't that the truth?
Every step she was taking was draining her stamina, both physically and mentally. She never imagined walking anywhere on 3 hooves would be so taxing. But it was.
Imagine hobbling around on 1 foot.
That would be painful.
That would suck.
As she continued to follow the curving path of the hallway, the water began to become shallower as the pathway drew slowly upward. She was now walking on dry ground as the hallway began to open up. She reached the end of the hallway, the path opening up into a large lobby. Her music box began to hiss softly. Fluttershy turning her light on to look at the room around her. Just at the edge of the light, she saw a nurse pacing. It walked on the other side of the table in the middle of the room before turning and walking back into the darkness. Fluttershy watched the darkness carefully. When the nurse then reappeared in the edge of her light, she walked the same path that it had been when she first saw it, before it turned around and walked back into the darkness. The nurse seemed to be walking in a pattern, as if it was waiting for something to disturb it or ruin its routine. Fluttershy very carefully drew closer to the table, but the nurse didn't seem to notice her.
By the way, everyone, the reason I'm looking at my iPod a lot is because I don't have Wi-Fi at my father's house, so I don't get to talk to my friends during the weekend, so I'm trying to catch up, really. I'm still listening to the story, and yes, the nurse is pacing, Fluttershy's walking up, and the nurse is really basically ignoring her. This is an interesting story. Like, I'm kind of concerned.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, her father being so strict and scary, I'm wondering, like, it's obvious that her mother is going to pass away because of this illness.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if maybe her father blames her for her mother dying.
And maybe that's that darkness creature, maybe a shadow of Fluttershy's former self?
It's possible because,
like
you know...
her guilt or something?
Yeah, it's possible because, you know, certain things in someone's past life can, you know, make them, you know, feel these things. Like,
and have bad dreams.
Like, I still have nightmares because of my grandmother, because I feel I didn't spend enough time with her when she was alive. But, you know, enough about that.
Fluttershy's eye turned to the table the nurse kept walking by, seeing something shine on it. It was another key. She paused carefully, waiting for the nurse to walk by and head away from the table, her music box hissing as it stepped closer to Fluttershy, before growing quieter when the nurse stepped away from her. Once the coast was clear, she quickly walked up to the table and grabbed the key before backing up before the nurse got close once more. She examined the key carefully, seeing there was a symbol of a red cross on it. She placed the key in her bag and looked around the room.
Oh, I gotta sit up. I can't stay sitting down. Oh, my back. Okay.
Other than the circling nurse, there was the usual scenery of broken chairs and rotted walls. To one side, she could see an extended wall with a door on it and a bookshelf along the wall past it. Then just past the circling nurse looked to be a small hallway, though what was beyond it looked too dark to see at the moment.
Check the camera. Make sure you can still see me back here. I just want to make sure you can see my face. Okay, yeah.
I'll tilt it up a bit.
Alright, there we go. Beautiful. Hi.
Looked around the room, I could see at the moment. She carefully walked around the table, making her way to the door she could see. She pushed the door open, heading inside. Her music box became quiet as the familiar light flashed before her eye.
Another one.
Billy Fluttershy whimpered as the nurse applied the alcohol to her cuts. Oh. Oh, don't be such a crybaby. The nurse rolled her eyes at him a little before pulling away the cotton ball and placing a band-aid on the wound. You really should be used to this by now. You're always coming in here with the same problem. Honestly, I don't know why your father just doesn't just take care of you at home. The nurse said begrudgingly. She walked away from the table. Fluttershy sat on the counter. That's that's because Fluttershy whimpered softly. The nurse snapped her head to glare at Fluttershy. Fluttershy instantly shut her mouth. She shrunk back into the table, trying to avoid the glare of the nurse. The nurse, once satisfied that the filly wouldn't say anything, turned back to the counter, organizing her items. The door to the room clicked open as Fluttershy sat up straight, her whole body turning stiff as her father strolled into the room before closing the door.
Oh,
Is everything fine with my daughter? Was the first thing he asked. The nurse pony instantly turned to him, her whole face lighting up as if his mere presence brought her joy. Of course, sir. You know I always do the finest work I can when you're asking me to, the nurse said, batting her eyelashes flirtatious at the doctor, smiling almost as if her life depended on it. Fluttershy's father didn't look impressed by the flirtation and turned back to his daughter. His daughter sat up straight, shivering as she sat on the table, afraid of what her father might do or say. Have you recovered from your accident? Her father asked with the stern, overbearing tone, as if he didn't actually care if she had recovered. Yes, sir, Fluttershy stuttered and squeaked. Her whole body was shaking as she stared straight ahead, not making eye contact with him.
it's messed up. She can't even call him dad or daddy. It's sir. That's ridiculous, man.
If you are, then leave. You can do as you wish. Just be in the lobby my line and I'll take you home, her father almost growled. Yes, sir. Fluttershy instantly jumped off the table and practically bolted out of the room, closing it behind her. She panted a little outside as her heart beat inside of her chest. Oh, doctor, Fluttershy heard the nurse almost moan from inside the room. She didn't stick around to hear more. She ran away from the room. She had been in the lobby when her father told her to be there, but she'd be as far away from him as she could be till then.
You know what? I think I'm starting to figure this out. I think her mother is still alive, but I think that her father may be cheating on her mother.
Maybe.
Because that doctor kind of throws up a little signature there.
Kinda does, yeah. The light faded away, revealing a room similar to the one she had just seen in the vision, only much like the rest of the world, falling apart, broken into pieces, covered in dust. A chill ran down Fluttershy's back as she recovered from the returning memories. She was scared of her father. She was scared of him. But she didn't remember what he did to make her scared of him. But she had an idea. Did my father abuse me? She muttered the words to herself. She didn't want to believe that he did, but everything was falling into place that he did. Maybe she was jumping to conclusions, maybe she was blowing it out of proportion, or maybe he just punished her too severely once by accident and hadn't made amends yet. Or maybe I'm trying to make excuses for my father, she sighed out loud as she lowered her head a little. I have to know the full story, Fluttershy said, lifting her head up. If I don't find out now, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Fluttershy gulped once more. She walked carefully to the end of the room where she spotted a similar key from the others she had gathered. This one seemed to have the symbol of a needle. She carefully placed it alongside the other keys. She exited the room, the hissing of her music box returning once more as the pacing nurse returned to her sight.
Oh boy.
Fluttershy carefully moved her lantern to get a better view, seeing if she was forgetting anything. A similar glint caught her eye in the corner of the room, the glint coming from the worn-down bookcase that lay against the wall just outside the nurse's pacing range. She waited for the nurse to cycle through the path once more, then quickly rushed over to the bookcase, making sure the nurse didn't turn its attention to her. She looked at the bookcase. It seemed to be filled with rotting medical books. ones that she saw a lot as a fool, but they were all illegible now. Hanging loosely on one of the rotted rows was another key. This one had the symbol of a book on it. She carefully placed it in her bag before returning to watch the nurse once more. The only place she had left to go now was the hallway the nurse seemed to be pacing just in front of. Fluttershy watched the nurse carefully. It seemed she would just have a few seconds at best to run past the nurse and get to the hallway with her being the farthest away from it as she could. She remembered the last time she got too close to a nurse, it screamed at it, and it had summoned. It screamed and it had summoned. A cold shiver ran down her back again. She couldn't face that creature again. If she faced it, it would no doubt be able to kill her this time. She took a deep breath and waited. She counted the number of times the nurse walked in a circle before her. She didn't want to screw up the timing even by a second. 10 times. 15 times. 20 times. She didn't want to move, but she knew she had to. She steeled her hoof, stretched her 3 nerves, and crouched down as she aimed for the door. She ran as fast as her hoofs would let her run past the nurse, stay far away as possible. The hallway came up behind her blind state. She knew where she was. But she knew where she was. She turned as soon as she needed and moved down the hallway away from the nurse. She skidded to a halt as the hallway came to an end abruptly. She almost ran straight into a heavily chained metal door. It took her eye a moment to focus on the door, but once it did, she could see everything. There were 5 padlocks holding the chains to the metal door behind it. They seemed to have something written on it, but was blocked by the chains. She recognized each of the symbols on the lock instantly. They matched the keys she had just gathered from the area. Being careful but swift, she pulled out each key one by one and placed them in their corresponding lock. Each lock and key fell to the ground, seeming to shatter against the ground. When the final lock fell, the chains fell with it, the chains seeming to shatter into pieces across the ground. The door was now free, and she could see what was written on the door. Strains of the heart, chained up memories. Will things be the same? You know what is true. You are not what you think you are. But feelings are strong. They can change everything, or they can change nothing. Experience the sins of another, then perhaps the threads of destiny will make their feelings known. Another riddle. Fluttershy looked at the poem and read it carefully. She read it at least 3 times, not fully understanding what it meant. A shiver ran down her spine as she read it, though. She got this feeling in the gut of her stomach. It was the feeling she was trying to warn her about her future. She was telling that she had something. It was telling her that she had something important to do once she crossed this door. I can't be scared off now, she said out loud to herself quietly before reaching out a hoof and pushing the door open. Fluttershy almost felt blown back. A wave of heat struck her as the door opened. She shielded her eyes from the heat. It felt like an inferno was burning on the other side of the door. She slowly moved her eye from where the fire was coming. The room just before was undoubtedly covered in flames. Fluttershy's jaw dropped a little, staring into the flames. Fluttershy slowly walked into the room, looking around. She could feel the heat all around her, and she was having difficulty discerning the appearance of the room. The door shut behind her as her vision began to clear. She was inside what looked like an abandoned house she had entered in Ponyville, only covered in fire. She looked around. The fire was everywhere. It seemed that the house should have burned to the ground by now. Yet it was somehow managing to stay upright despite the flames. But something stood out in the flames. Her eye trying to focus on a figure that stood in the flames, looking at a picture that hung from a wall. It was a blue Pegasus with a rainbow mane. "Rainbow Dash!" Fluttershy called out, surprised but happy to see her mare friend alive and okay. She tried to draw closer, but a wave of fire seemed to stand between her and Rainbow Dash. Rainbow Dash continued to stand in the same place, staring at the picture as if she hadn't heard Fluttershy call out. "Rainbow Dash?" Fluttershy called out once more. "It's all the same, you know," Rainbow Dash muttered quietly, not looking away from the picture. "Huh?" Fluttershy responded, confused by her words. "I can't believe I didn't see it before, but it really has always been like this." Rainbow Dash closed her eyes for a moment before opening them again. "Always running away. Always getting away when I don't care anymore." "Rainbow Dash, what are you talking about?" Rainbow Dash just seemed to pause for a moment before a small laugh came from her. "I'm the element of loyalty. Loyalty. What a load of crud that is." Rainbow closed her eyes and a small smile faded from her face. "All I ever do is abandon. I've never even cared about my friends or loved ones. I've only ever cared about myself. There's a better life for me out there. I don't want to be held down by your rules. I don't care about clearing the sky for you. I don't care for you as a friend anymore. I'm going to abandon you for my own desires." Rainbow Dash seemed to be imitating herself. This has to be a hallucination or something. "But, Rainbow Dash, you don't abandon your friends," Fluttershy offered a meek protest. "Are you blind?" Rainbow Dash half laughed, half cried. "After you got separated from us, I abandoned Pinkie Pie to go find you. I yelled at her. I blamed her for getting us into this mess. I said that if you died here, this would be all her fault." Rainbow Dash shook her head softly. "And I've hurt you in the worst way with my abandonment, and you still don't want to say I don't? I abandoned you at flight school when you needed me, all because I didn't care to be held down." Rainbow lowered her head, a sad grin on her face as she seemed to be accepting the truth just as much as she was telling it. "But that was a long time ago. Things have changed." Fluttershy started up but was interrupted by Dash. "You know, Fluttershy, when you join the Wonderbolts..." "What?" "There's a minimum 1-year mandatory private training you have to go through to learn all their techniques and flight patterns to fly with the Wonderbolts successfully. They perform shows all year round all over Equestria." It almost seemed like Dash didn't want to say this. When I make my dream come true, I'm leaving Ponyville. I'm leaving behind my friends. I'm leaving you behind. I'll be abandoning you once again." Fluttershy's mouth was agape, unable to comprehend Dash's words. No, more accurately, she didn't want to comprehend her words. They felt like needles trying to jab into her heart. "But, hey, why should that change now?" Dash lifted her head up and looked at the picture before her. "I ran away from home. I quit flight school. I gave up on friends just because we don't see eye to eye anymore. And I'll get rid of all my friends for just some silly dream." The sad grin returned to Dash's face. "I burn all the bridges I've made in my life so I can never look back at what I've done." "Dash," Fluttershy muttered weakly. "I'm sorry you fell in love with some pony like me, Fluttershy." Rainbow's voice cracked as if she was holding back tears. "I'm not one who deserves it." Dash turned away from the picture, putting her back to Fluttershy. "You should forget about me." Dash slowly began to walk away, walking towards the doorway Fluttershy couldn't reach through the burning flames. "Rainbow Dash, wait!" Fluttershy cried out. Rainbow Dash stopped in her tracks for a moment as if she didn't want to, but she had to hear what Fluttershy needed to say. "Rainbow Dash," Fluttershy whimpered a little, feeling tears burning at the edge of her eyes. She gulped down the lump in her throat and lifted her head, summoning all the courage she could muster from her heart. I need you to be strong now, right now. Alright? That's exactly what Rainbow Dash said.
Yeah.
Rainbow Dash didn't react or move right away. She stood there as if the words seemed to sink in slowly, but after a time, she finally spoke up. Alright, was the only word that escaped Rainbow before she disappeared into the doorway before her, being shrouded by the fire that filled the house. For a moment, Fluttershy thought she had seen tears fall from Dash's face. Fluttershy lowered her head as tears began to fall from her eyes, slowly rolling down her cheeks and down her chin. She didn't care how hot she felt, or that the fires were still burning so close to her. She just had to cry right now. And that's the end of chapter 6.
Well, that's an interesting chapter. The story's getting pretty interesting.
Yep. Anyways, that was the end of chapter 6. This is JTH,
Mr. Toaster Hero.
and we will see you in part 7.
Yeah.
Goodbye.